Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be featuring my Hame Radio Logbook. It's amazing. Each of these contacts have been with a simple vertical antenna. In fact, most of them were with an 8-foot antenna by MFJ and no radials, just a very simple setup. You can see more on my QRZ website. So if you go to qrz.com and you look up AC7WH, then you'll be able to see pictures of what I'm talking about. I hope to include that in a future video as well. In the meantime, I would like to go over these different contacts that I've had with my logbook, and most of them have been with my Ameritron AL811H amplifier with several hundred watts or so, but keep in mind it was not fully functional most, if not all of the time that I was making these contacts. So I may not have had the full 800 watts, it's hard to say. But either way, it's amazing to think what can be done with a very simple antenna setup, amplifier or no amplifier. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. Keep in mind, this is going to include Australia and the African continent and Asia and Europe and South America and multiple islands. All right, so I'll go through these pretty quickly. Now keep in mind, this is from my QTH, my location in Sutherland, Oregon. As the radio wave flies, that's about 100 miles north of the border with California. Also, you will notice in here that some of these contacts have been with my brother, Michael. His call sign is AE7JE. And he is also here in Sutherland, but he often will use remotes all across the United States, and that has helped me to test out my signal propagation and my transceiver and all of that. All right, I will not go over all the details here. You can pause the video and look at them yourself if you're curious for more specifics. But the first contact in this book would have been just a few weeks after I got my transceiver and my 8-foot antenna before just recently upgrading to my 25-foot antenna. Okay, so reached my brother AE7JE via the KC7C remote in Spokane Valley, Washington. So that was 421 miles. If any of you use kilometers, then I recommend using a calculator for converting miles into kilometers, but in case anybody doesn't know, that is approximately 1.6 kilometers per mile. So you could just multiply these miles by 1.6 and that'll tell you the kilometers approximately. Okay, so the next one would be N6VOH in Jurupa Valley, California. That was 723 miles. Then Alex in Studio City, California. That's 694 miles. Of course, you'll see the call sign is W6AFA. Then my brother Michael, again, via the W8RJ remote in South Lyon, Michigan. 1,989 miles. And then N6JW in Riverside, California, 726 miles. W7JIF in Sun City West, Arizona, 895 miles. KM4POP in LaBelle, Florida, 2,599 miles. Now for the rest of this book, unless it's something that really stands out, I will not feature the miles, but when it's a big distance, like to Japan, for example, here, with JA1QJE at 4,952 miles. I will go ahead and include the miles there. All right, so continuing on, my brother via the N4GYN remote in Beaufort, Georgia. He likes to use that remote quite a bit. Of course, again, you can pause the video and check out whether it was upper sideband or some other mode, if it was the 20-meter band or some other frequency, and so forth. So continuing on, if we look here, we see I contacted W3GEL in New Wellington, Pennsylvania. And W7IJN in North Glen, Colorado. By the way, those two there, George in New Wilmington, Pennsylvania, he is a longtime family friend and mutual ham radio operator. And Doug is his longtime friend, and George introduced our family, my brother and our parents, to Doug via ham radio over the air. So that was a nice three-way conversation between George and Doug and myself. Then again, my brother via the N4GYN remote in Beaufort, Georgia. And then N8UKM in Akron, Ohio. Ed in Ravenna, I think that is, Ohio. And that is KA8YOR. Then KB5UTS in Sealy, Texas. KN6OJX in Palo Verde, California. Now, some of you may be wondering, wait a second, this is going to take forever to go through this logbook. Well, actually, it turns out I do not have a large number, relatively speaking, of contacts. However, these are each special to me because they represent when I re-entered ham radio, and in fact, my first HF contacts, even though I had been licensed for 20 years by the time I started really having contacts other than just with handhelds and repeaters. So this was a big deal for me. All right. Nonetheless, there are only just several pages or so of contacts. All right, next one is JR3JFZ in Gojo City, Nara, Japan. That was 5,120 miles. Again, keep in mind, that's with an 8-foot vertical with no radials at all. Next one is a local ham, Robert, in Roseburg, Oregon. And that's just 11 miles away. So KJ7HIR. And then N5FFN in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. Then N9NUQ in Chicago, Illinois. KI4UX in Florence, Alabama. Then Ivan, who has a YouTube channel, by the way, LU8MIL, he was speaking to me through his remote, so I reached to Mendoza, Argentina, 6,292 miles from me, but he was residing in Germany, remotely operating his station that was set up in Mendoza, Argentina. Next is JR3JFZ in Gojo City, Nara, Japan, 5,120 miles. You'll notice here there are a few repeats of the same ham radio operators, but most of them are unique contacts in my logbook here, other than my brother who helped me do a lot of testing. Then I have KL7WG in Anchorage, Alaska. And then again with KJ7HIR in Roseburg, Oregon. WA5FWC in Venus, Texas. N0W, that was Zero Land in Plymouth, Minnesota. That was the WRTC 2023 Zero Land. A unique contact there. And then again, my brother via the remote in Beaufort, Georgia. AE7JE, my brother, N4GYN, the remote. Then CT9/UR9IDX. That was Ivan in Porto, Moniz, Madeira. Now that was Madeira Island. That is technically part of the African continent, and it is not far away from Western Sahara, Africa, and it's a little bit closer to Morocco in the African continent. So 5,411 miles, again, just with a little antenna in my backyard, near my patio, just sitting on essentially some iron outdoor furniture and a metal utility tub. Then I spoke with VE7VCK in British Columbia, Canada. And KC2MIB in Stedman, North Carolina. KH6KW in Waipahu, Hawaii. W1KA in Concord, New Hampshire. KF0DYR in Falcon, Colorado. K1NDF in Framingham, Massachusetts. CX7RM in Punta del Este, Uruguay. That was 6,909 miles. CX6RW in Maldonado, Uruguay, 6,908 miles. TI2SD in San Jose, Costa Rica, 3,301 miles. Not terribly far, but far enough. N5DUP in Tuscola, Texas. KD5MYN in Barryton, Michigan. KD4TL in Huntsville, Alabama. FM4LV in, whoop, my focus is going out, there we go, in Martinique, 4,147 miles. LUT-DSV in El Palomar, Argentina, 6,520 miles. PY3PA in Santa Maria, Brazil, 6,694 miles. KI5OS in Bluffdale, Texas. JF1SNL in Osado Gun, Japan, 4,888 miles. So again, a lot of these are really far, so I was including the mileage, but here's a closer one. NI2M in Euless, Texas. JL8P6NW in Holders Hill, Barbados. JL8PZO in Shibetsu-gun, Japan. TI2VW in Hatillo, Costa Rica. LU4DJB in Nueve de Julio, Argentina. 6,714 miles. 6Y5CB in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Now here is one of my farthest contacts, if not the farthest here. YB0IBM Dot in Jakarta, Indonesia, 8,461 miles. And he received me as a 5.6, that's what I sent out, and I received him as a 5.3. And then we have CX7 SS in Villa Serrana, Uruguay, 6,877 miles. So a lot of these in South America. LU1DX, again, Dan in Nueve de Julio, Argentina, over 6,000 miles. I'm down to the last few pages here in case you're wondering. Now, my first VK station, I believe. VK2WJ, that was John in New South Wales, Australia. And that was 7,526 miles. We were both 5.5. I like to be accurate if I can with the signal strength and reception. It's never going to be absolutely perfect, but I like to be close. Then CA4OMQ in Rancagua, Chile, 6,259 miles. Then here's another VK. VK2KPP in Grenfell, Australia, 7,701 miles. VK8NSB in Darwin, Australia. WA5Z in Houston, Texas. N0P, that was the 2023 Museum Ships Weekend in Montrose, Colorado. VK3OZY, over 8,000 miles. That was Grant in Skye, Australia. Now there was a point in our conversation where we thought that we may have had a long path communication. In fact, the QSL card that you may see on my QRZ page, it was included as a long path, but when we discussed it, it turns out it was probably the short path in all likelihood. Okay, then we have FY5KE in Kourou, French Guiana, over 5,000 miles. Here's another unique one. Anatoly, or Toli for short, in Michurinsk, Russia, 5,715 miles. That was an enjoyable conversation, as all of these were in one way or another. And that was RA3RCL. Then K7RDG, that was Aaron in Paradise, Arizona. And I believe that is related to the Cochise Amateur Radio Club, and they have a YouTube channel as well. It was nice because I was able to see a video of myself reaching them. On the other end, I could hear what I sounded like through their YouTube video, so that was fun. Then PD9DX in Holten, Netherlands. VE2HTC in Montreal, Canada. KE0MDL in Tipton, Kansas. Then my brother AE7JE again via the KC7C remote in Spokane Valley, Washington. KK7 PVM in Estacada, Oregon. Now this was a test with Don, checking out how we could reach each other with 80 meters, and I was using an 80 meter antenna that is also just several feet long or so, and I was using by accident only 60 watts because I had forgotten to turn my amplifier back on after I had initially powered up and so forth. So I had reached him with 60 watts, and as you can see, the signal sent and received was not that strong, but it worked. Then I upped the power to more like 600 watts, and it was obviously a lot better, so I was sending out 9 plus 11 over. Then there was VE3XYY in Carlisle, Canada. VE3LRL in Freelton, Canada. N50MM in Laranger, Louisiana. K5DNA in Conway, Arkansas. And then that was 100 watts with FM, by the way. And then KD4JRX, also 100 watts in FM. That was in Watha, North Carolina. So almost 2,500 miles with just 100 watts and with FM. That was amazing. It was like having a repeater in my backyard almost, except it was clear across the United States. FM and all. Then I had, from what I recall, accidentally left my power down to 10 watts. I reached N5CTO, and that was upper sideband on 10 meters to Allen, Texas, so 1,605 miles. Then K5DNA in Conway, Arkansas, 1,739 miles. But that was FM, that was with 30 watts. Again, it was one of those situations where I had left my amplifier turned off or something like that. Then, this is where things got interesting because the AL811H amplifier is not really designed for having FM, especially when you're combining that with 10 meters, which is what it has the greatest challenge with. And so the suppressor board overheated, and I ended up replacing it with a great suppressor board from CTR Engineering. So you'll see more about that on my QRZ page. But in any case, I was originally running lower power. I intentionally made sure it wasn't a lot of power. It wasn't the full 800 watts by any means, as far as I could tell, but it was 320 watts is what I estimated. And then I had to reduce it quickly down to 30 watts because the amplifier was giving me telltale signs that something was overheating. And then 100 watts because I was able to turn the transceiver power back up. But in any case, I was reaching almost 2,000 miles with FM on 10 meters. And then my most recent QSO was K5FB with just 100 watts, and that was with the 40 meter band with my new antenna. This is the only contact I've had, like solid contact, with my new antenna that is the 25-foot Chameleon antenna. And that was with some radials this time. And that was at 7.165 megahertz. So 549 miles. So not too bad, up to Eureka, Montana. with Frank. That was a fantastic QSO. Well, thank you everyone. Those who watched this whole video, I especially appreciate it. And even if you just watched a little bit, thank you so much. And I'll hope to see you again soon. 73.